Morning, everyone. Welcome to the September 6th meeting of the Economic Development Commission. I would like to begin by entertaining a motion to approve the draft of the August 2nd meeting minutes, which were in the materials distributed to you.
So moved.
Here a second?
Second.
Any comments or corrections or additions to these? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, Sean.
Great, good morning. Well, if you've been on a media fast, you missed a few things this week because it was busy. It's
been a week.
There was a Novacure ribbon cutting, which was well attended by dignitaries from the governor to our senators and others. There was a rail trail ribbon cutting. If you missed that, the next day, the governor was back for that. And so that was well attended. And then we had Street Life, and I don't want to steal any Ben's thunder, but I will just say, as a participant, it was pretty amazing to be out at Pease, out in Hangar. It was a beautiful night. And I'll just, from my own standpoint, I thought the mayor, I thought his comments were really awesome. He was really thanking businesses and specifically Pease, but really all the folks that were there that were really due to celebrate our businesses, and talked about the richness and the value that they bring to not only our economy, but our community. So I thought the mayor did a really great job up on stage last night. So moving forward, just a couple of updates that are...
John, I'd just like to comment, there was a motorbike that went by during the ceremony.
A motorcade.
No, a
Oh, a
motorbike
motorbike.
on the trail.
I did see that. Absolutely.
Are they not allowed?
They're not allowed.
No,
No motorized. I did see that.
Takes some goal to do that.
All right, so, sorry, to continue, the Market Square Master Plan, there hasn't been a change since last month. There's been no update. All the information is on the website. However, the schedule for the remainder of the year is that the Market Square Master Plan will convene the working group sometime in September. I'm on that, Ann is on that, Everett attends those meetings as well. And then there'll be another public meeting in October, and then there'll be, I guess, final recommendations to City Council by the end of the year. So that's the schedule for the Market Square Master Plan effort that you've all been hearing about. Okay? Along those lines, the Parking Utilization Study Group, that's another one that I attend, and similar schedule there. I believe that it's going to be a presentation to City Council on the September 23rd meeting, so that'll be in the packet. That'll be the first time I think folks have eyes on what the consultant is proposing. And then there'll be, I think, another public meeting in October, or opportunity for public input. And similarly, towards the end of December, there'll be a final report sent to City Council. I believe I have that correct. So those are the two big efforts that have been going on all year. The only other thing, there's a Seacoast Shipyard Association is having their economic impact event here in City Council chambers.
I believe it's the 18th.
18th is 1 o'clock, the 18th here at City Hall. September 18th, yes. So waiting with bated breath to see what those economic impact numbers are. They're always big, impressive numbers. So, and the last thing is I'm on the group for the Sherburne School housing effort that the city has underway, and we have a tentative walkthrough scheduled for, wow, I just had
I
it,
think the 12th.
for next week, the 12th. Yeah, the 12th. So everything is continuing to move forward that we talk about, and keeping an eye on the economic impact. I'll just open it up to any questions if you guys have any.
Any questions of Sean? I just had one observation after looking at yesterday morning's paper, was on Councilor Bagley's proposal to narrow the
Congress.
last part of Congress Street, and from 3 lanes to 2 lanes, and so I guess I'm wondering, is that not part of the the Market Square master plan analysis, or?
It is not.
Okay.
Well, I can take that. I was at Parking and Traffic Safety yesterday, and I was reminded that the outer edge of the Market Square Master Plan is really sort of near Fleet, but Fleet is right adjacent to where this sort of butts up. And the reason for considering the narrowing of the lanes now is not for outdoor dining. It is not for direct guidance that will come out of Market Square Master Plan. It's really going to be part of the Fleet Street sewer separation consent decree project, updating of utilities. And when we're in the ground doing that with the utilities that go through Von Mall as part of Fleet Street, that butts up against this project, so we can align all those things. So traffic engineer Eric Eby likes the idea of 2 lanes that are both a little bit wider and sidewalks that are more accommodating.
So that raises a question, because my understanding was a year or so ago that the council had voted to enlarge the Market Square plan scope to include, all the way to Middle Street, but also over to State Street and over to Hanover Street. Is that no longer going to be part of the?
It's my understanding that they expanded that for the purpose of considering the dining aspect.
Oh,
And so-
okay, so
But
what-
not necessarily the streetscape and the footprint per se.
I feel like on the maps, there were 2 outlines.
Yep.
There was like the outline,
Yep.
and then there was this other
Things that should be considered.
things to be
Yes.
considered.
To include outdoor dining. So to wrap that conversation, part of the conversation up, if there were restaurants on the side of Congress Street opposite Jimmy's, picture outdoor dining that could work there to be something like what Cafe Med has, tight tables to the wall, but still maintaining 6, 7, 8 feet of sidewalk.
Okay.
So not outdoor dining 2.0, not what you remember as outdoor dining, but a different version if the restaurant so choose.
I measured in front of Stady, the current Stady, and it's kind of like that.
Okay.
It's about the same width, and they have a little 2-tops, they have 4 little 2-tops, and a little rope around. That's, all that would accommodate.
Yeah, okay.
It's like the bagel shop, too.
The larger issue in my mind was just, I thought that the design issues were going to have a larger area than the traditional Market Square concept, but that's not going to be the case.
No, I think it does, but maybe not all the way. This is a separate.
Okay, well, all right. But when we see the master plan for the square, it will potentially have changes over on the side streets, is that?
It should.
Yes.
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 Great. Okay, anything else, Sean?
No, thank you.
All right, then let's go with our working groups. We'll start with Ann.
I've had 2 conversations since the last meeting. Also, we didn't report back last month, so that's actually 2 months' worth of things. We had a conversation with the Rockingham Planning Commission, mostly for me to better understand what it is they do. And I got a lot of detail from them on what they do, which I won't share all of that. We met with Scott Bogle and David Walker, and Beth Moreau, city councilor, sat in on that because she's now the chair of the, is it called the board or just the commission or?
Commission.
Commission. She's the chair. Anyway, the biggest takeaways really of what they do, they're the federally designated planning organization that administers federal funding for transportation. So that's kind of the big overarching thing. They are the watchdogs for the social safety net of transportation for seniors, people with disabilities, and people living on low income. They did tell us that Coast, back in, maybe it was 2019 or something previous to that, they had a product called Commute Smart Seacoast that lost its funding in 2020, and that was a helpful product for these populations to put together their transportation. CMAQ funding is reviving this initiative, and we're going to see that come back online soon, according to them, like this fall. Maybe they've actually hired the person that will do it. Without reallocation of funding from the state, they feel public transportation has little chance of growth. So I gave it 2 action items. One, they suggested we develop a relationship with Chris Pappas because he is the transportation-focused senator in New Hampshire. So he's the one to work on. And in a tiny way, and I believe I think I passed this one on to parking and traffic safety. I'm not sure how we manage this, but on Gosling Road, there's a bus stop. There's bus stops on both sides of the street at Gosling Meadows. The Gosling Meadows side of the street is Portsmouth and has a lovely bus stop. Across the street from that is Newington, and there is no bus stop. There's not a curb cut. There's nothing except just some dirt. And they feel it's a very unsafe situation, but Newington is not interested in fixing that. There's also no crosswalk. So they just kind of threw that out. If there was anything Portsmouth could do to get Newington to amp up their bus stop a little bit, they would love that because that bus stop makes them nervous. And it's highly used because it's the whole population of Gosling Meadows using that bus stop, and they have to cross, I guess the one side of the street goes inbound, the other side goes outbound, and so those residents are using that. So I'm throwing that out, and it's probably not anything we can do a whole lot with, but there it is. The other conversation was actually more fascinating than the RPC, and that was with VIA, the microtransit company. That conversation happened, they monitor newspapers, they saw in the paper that the Parking and Traffic Safety Committee, specifically Andrew Bagley, had reached out to Zipcar to put Zipcars in place, and that is not happening. That was all in the news. We can't support the number of cars. There's no funding for it. So VIA reached out to Andrew and said, could we have a meeting? We have solutions for you. And they put together a PowerPoint presentation, which looked a lot to me like the one that's archived in the 2019, but they updated it a little bit. It was fascinating, I have to say, though I don't know where the money comes from for this, but let's set that aside for now. It was a fascinating presentation. They kind of have answers for a lot of the questions that we throw out there. Long story short on that, they would love to come back. They would love to customize it actually to their presentation to the demographics that we have here today. So I worked up, all that they have is the 2020 census, and I worked up a map for them with what I knew that was either built and occupied since 2020, and also the potentially in the pipeline things like Sherburne School and Service Credit Union and Christ Church, things they would have no idea that is happening. So I marked up a map with all of those numbers and sent that off to them, and they're going to customize a presentation knowing where our population density is. And they would like to, if you're interested, they would be very happy to present that to the EDC in either October or November, so you could get the whole deep dive on what microtransit might look like here. So if I'm going to assume there is interest,
Yeah.
and I will ask them to go ahead and do that, rather than me go through all the detail that I pulled out. I'd like you to hear it from them instead of secondhand from me. So that's my VIA report.
Excellent.
One
Yes.
question. Do you think there would be benefit in having other folks outside the EDC participate in that presentation here? Are they planning on sharing the same materials to parking and transportation
Well,
or other groups?
I mean, the question with Councilor Bagley, he would like that presentation to be given to council. It's like, who gets it first? And Tom and I talked, and we kind of feel like it should start here so that we understand it before it goes to council. But, I mean, with it broadcast also, we package it up. We'll have access to the PowerPoint. He sent the PowerPoint that he presented to us. I have in my email if anybody wants to flip
I think it
through
makes
that.
sense to have it come to the EDC, and maybe we make it issue awareness or invitations to others that might be tangentially
Okay.
interested in participating or attending.
It was compelling, his proposal. There were bits and pieces of it that I didn't understand how it worked, and when you understand how it worked, you're like, okay, maybe, I don't know.
Mr. Chair, there's also a request of this same VIA representative to meet with myself, Peter Ice, Ben Fletcher, Eric Eby, so that will probably be concurrent with an
Oh,
appearance
good.
here.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes
Could
sense.
make a joint, EDC could make a joint recommendation to the council reps, perhaps, or at least give an update that we had presentations and
Yes.
that sort of.
So rather than having them have to present to multiple folks, I think the more people we can get into the singular presentation would be good.
Yeah,
Sounds
plus,
great.
I think it would be helpful if, the presentation is informed by all the contacts that you've made with all the other transportation groups, and how it would fit in with that. In fact, that might be
Well,
something
specifically, it's Coast, and he talked a lot about Coast and about how they work with fixed route operators, and that they're not here to put the fixed route operators out of business. What they do is try to pick up the routes that aren't covered or provide transit from, let's say, deep into Elwyn Park out to the bus stop, because sometimes you're just too far from a bus stop. So he did have a lot of answers on that kind of thing. So, yeah, I reach out to Coast on that.
And do they have services that reach out from one municipality to another? I think about the parking crunch at the
Yes.
shipyard. Are there opportunities to have shuttle
If
transport?
they come here, it would be much more than just Portsmouth proper. They're looking at the region.
So would that require participation with the other communities?
Ask the
Well,
VIA guy.
or-
I would think
Or
so.
through RPC, right,
Or
transportation.
through the
is
RPC.
their focus.
Because RPC is who's overseeing
Right.
the
Would
region.
involve Kittery, though, would it?
Yeah, you'd have to cross borders, but
I think maybe that's a question for them. How do they deal with cross-border transportation?
And he
if there's a
talked
regional
about,
need?
he talked about shipyard potential. He knew of the transportation crunch at the shipyard, so he was well aware of that happening. So, yeah, I feel like make lists of questions. Tentatively, we'll say October. I feel like sooner rather than later is better.
Did he talk about funding
He did.
opportunities?
He did. They have, and that will be part of the presentation. He's going to look at what's available in New Hampshire, what's available federally. They have grant writers. They have found the funding. I think they're in 80 cities right now, and they have found the funding for most of them, have identified the lion's share of it. So they're pretty turnkey. They can also be, they can either be the holistic, we bring the vehicles, we bring the drivers, we do the everything, or they can be software and we do the rest of it. So you kind of pick and choose how far do you want them to come in. It's not necessarily them showing up with the whole shebang. He thought 3 to 5 vehicles for Portsmouth was what we'd be looking at. And they're sort of like oversized vans, like a jitney, sort of. Yeah. It was, I mean, it was, I walked away from it thinking, oh, gosh, there were a lot of notions I had about microtransit that he kind of put to rest and clarified what it really is. It was cool.
Great. Other questions?
Do they use electric vehicles?
I don't know. They're more expensive, so I
Sure,
don't
they'll
know.
be happy to customize it for a fee.
Yeah, yeah.
Just
Don't
a
know.
question thinking forward.
Put that on your list of questions to ask. Other questions? Okay, great. So have you discussed dates with them, or?
I gave him the dates of the next 2 EDC meetings
Okay,
and said I'd see him, take the temperature this morning, and I'll go ahead and,
I think October would be good, provided we can get the additional folks that city manager recommended to attend.
sounds good.
yeah.
Agreed.
And October, Karen is available October 4th, so we know that would probably be a preference.
Okay. Is that the meeting you're not available for, Sean? Is that
Correct.
right? You'll have to watch the YouTube.
You can watch.
Excellent. Okay, any other things on your working group? Great, let's go to the business support group. Andy?
Sure. The group, I believe, has met once since our last EDC. We've got a couple of agenda items that are active, and one is on hold, which is or temporarily on hold, which is working with Sean and his vendor for a CRM for EDC, especially focused on local business outreach. And then the second agenda item
Can I just ask why it's on hold?
had to do with, yeah, that's a good question. So it had to do with, we had a list of questions and tasks, and this Growth Lab needed more time to come back to. They were not easy answers either. They involved actual development and integration with like Microsoft Outlook.
I have a little update if you'd like.
Yeah.
So we just, this week, we're able to get the Outlook integration, and it required the vendor working with the IT team here to make sure that, that I could use my city email address, and it'd be integrated. I can't speak to the exact details on how that works, but basically I'll be able to send emails, choose the groups based on labels, i.e. restaurants in downtown versus other places, and the information will go out to the businesses and the responses will come back, and Grow Lab will capture contacts and information and create profiles in the tool. And there's an opt-in, there's an opt-out. That was important to me. It's like sending it out to everybody and then saying this is an option if you want to be engaged, if you want information, if you want to be involved in future surveys. So we'll see where we get. We're very close. I was on the phone yesterday, or on the Zoom yesterday, to test it, and we've got a couple of final pieces. So we're getting there, very close.
And just as an aside, are these customizations or a core part of the platform? Because these are usual standard features within a CRM to be able to email.
Yeah, they're not customized. They're part of the,
Okay.
yeah.
So the other agenda item was directly tied to the lead-up and presentation that Shanti Wolf gave from the inspections department. I think everybody in the room was at that presentation, and the way the group wanted to handle, there was many ideas of kind of how to go from that presentation on to next steps. So the group discussed what to do, and what we came up with was kind of a concluding letter, internal letter to the EDC that then may morph into a letter that goes to council in a similar way, kind of a report back to our own group and then to city council. So Tom actually made copies of the rough draft of that letter. This letter, again, is addressed to us as the commission. The notion would be Tom and I would work on some final polishing to the rough draft, and the intended recipient would then be the council. So that was an effort that happened within our group just this week, and starting Monday, and this is where we are on Friday with a rough draft. So those are the two agenda items, and then the other notion I think that we're going to be, we started to talk about, but we put off till our next meeting, is if, in fact, this letter represents a concluding task to one of our agenda items, then is it appropriate to look for a replacement task or agenda item? We started talking about the list that Sarah had put together from our retreat, and then we kind of tabled that discussion have it at our next meeting. So that's the full report back. Do you want to talk any more about the letter, Tom, or how?
Sure, but let me add, does anybody have any questions of Andy on, before we discuss this letter, any of these topics? Or? Okay, so the draft you have in front of you is prepared as sort of a committee report to the commission, and we had discussed at the end of, discussed at the end of our last meeting out of Pease that this subject, the results of our sort of deep dive might be of value both to the city council and also to the extent that it would be picked up by the press, the community as a whole, to sort of dispel the anecdotal rumors that Portsmouth is a tough place to, get inspections and buildings completed because of a backlog. And I thought that Shanti's presentation pretty much showed that that is not the case. So as Andy reported, I think the thinking here is we'd be interested in your comments on this letter or memo, but with the idea that it will serve as a basis for something that is directed toward a different audience, the city council. And whatever comments you might have or thoughts to change it or add to it, we would have hopefully a final or near final version of this for you to look at a meeting in October. And then we would hope that our city council representatives would be able to take that to a meeting and, include it in the city council material and speak to it as part of your individual reports. So if that makes sense to everybody, then if you want to take a minute to look at this. My own thinking is that we might want to extract some of the numbers from Shanti's report and, sort of add a little meat to the bone, so to speak.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question? And maybe you addressed it, and I don't know where my head was at. Would this almost take the form of an update to the council on where we are, year in review? We have to work. Would this be for the efforts of both working groups?
Yes, it would be, well, actually, I had thought of it really as an update or a work outcome on a particular issue as opposed to one group or another. I think we're going to be in the middle of this transportation thing. So I would, at least my thinking is, but I'm open to discussion on it, my thinking is we're reporting out, what we're saying as part of our work for this year. We identified issue in the business community. We've done a deep dive on it, and this is the outcome of it, and we thought the outcome was important enough to share with the city council, as opposed to simply saying this is what the EDC did in 2024.
My only thought to respond to that is one of the council's new goals is to look at, consider, try to identify different transportation options. So I just thought it would, if all we were giving was an update on the piece that our group's been working on, maybe that makes sense. So it's not, so that the council knows we heard them and we're trying to address a goal. But I don't mean to mess with what you've got going. I just was thinking about that.
Again, if you have a preference for doing it differently, but my hope would be that after listening to VIA and to the extent that we need to talk to other groups, that we would come back with a separate report or recommendation on that. I mean, or maybe we work to build a consensus around something like that. And so I wouldn't want to hold this back.
Sure. Understood.
Particularly since I think the transportation issue is probably going to go over until 2024, 2025.
Right, and maybe if all the council reps do is mention that that's a work in progress,
Sure.
leave it there.
Exactly.
Honor that, move on, come back when that's ready.
And
Is there, my group had the other topic of the downtown power grid. Is there any value in reporting back on that as well? Kind of that we've looked at it, we understand it, there's not, it's everything, Eversource is doing what needs to be done there. Is that, or do we just kind of tie that up in a bow and put it in the archives? It wasn't a topic that came to us from council.
no,
Right.
no. It really was, it came out of our retreat or workshop. You know, I'm open to discussing it. My quick response was that it didn't seem to have as much there as we all thought it was going to be, and that it was dispelled pretty quickly by the PSNH people, or Eversource, or whatever they're called now. So I would not be inclined to dedicate a specific thing to it, but if you want to advocate for it, talk about it.
I think there are two channels we're trying to solve here. One is, what is the EDC working on, and what is our content and regularity of output back to the council, either for the things we're working on directly or the things that council has directed, and then at what point in time do we provide the interim updates or the completion of deliverables as part of that. And I think because we have not established or had regular EDC output to the council, we're trying to solve both at the same time. So my suggestion would be we issue a version of this memo as is, because the work has wrapped up, and I think it's important to get it to the council, but I also recommend that we establish a regular method of both reporting out on what we're doing and receiving additional input from the council on what they would like us to focus on, which also addresses Andy's question around what should we do next.
Bill?
I was going to say, I think that's a great suggestion, and with regards to the memo itself, I think this is great work and good to kind of be addressing it anecdotally. I unfortunately wasn't here for Shanti's presentation, but I think some of the content of that would probably go a long way to just showing the volume of activity, what the pace is, and, you know, when a permit might be applied for and when it's closed out. So I think a lot of that data kind of dispels any myths that are out there. I think permitting and zoning is, or entitlement, I think, is maybe different than permitting, and that's sort of a separate piece that might factor into the master planning and any changes to zoning, the gateway district. So, but I think with regards to this memo, I think if you pull just kind of the highlights of some of that presentation, assuming it was fairly detailed, and I'm sure it was, would be helpful just to kind of, and then maybe as an exhibit, include the actual slide deck, if they haven't received that separately.
Yeah, I don't think they have, so.
Just pertaining to reporting out to council, I'm conflicted in that, in terms of I'm not really representative of this body. I mean, I think if this body has a report to the council, it should come from, probably from you, in that, I mean, I don't think it's my role, and maybe I'm wrong, to speak for this commission. I think I can talk about what we're working on, but not the findings. Do you understand that? Do you understand the difference there?
I do. So I guess my philosophy on this is that, you know, if I was sitting in the city council seat, I'm not sure I'd want to have another report to read with those substantial materials they get every month that simply says this is what the EDC is working on. I think if we have some information to share with them without including a recommendation of some sort, then I think, you know, providing them with a memo or, you know, reports conjures up something much larger, but some type of communication that suggests this is what we've looked at. I tend to think that you don't need to have, you know, someone from the EDC go up there and repeat what's already in that. And that's why I thought that, you know, I think about when, again, Councilor Bagley does his parking and traffic report, you know, it's part of his report out on what's going on. I don't see that the city council would need to do that every meeting, but if we had something like this where we're basically saying this is sort of a fact finding and this is what we had, that would be the appropriate way of communicating. I think if we were to develop a recommendation for for some action by the city or the city council, then it might be appropriate for me or someone from the EDC to present that. So I think that's what we did with the EV charging back in 2022. I think we did that with our dining recommendation. Phil presented that. So I see it, different methods of communication depending on the nature of what is being communicated.
If it's an inform as opposed to an action.
That's right. I really think if we're recommending the city take an action, then we ought to be in front of them and say, this is why, and be able to answer questions. With what we're talking about with the inspection, I can't imagine the city council is going to want to ask the EDC about questions about something that one of their employees can answer off the top of his head, so.
I'd be happy to take a pass at putting some recommendations together around communication between EDC and council based upon the type of information we're sharing for the group to review. And then we can look and see whether that fits with what we need. It feels like there's still a lack of clarity in this area.
There is a difference, I think, between parking and safety, because they haven't, every meeting seems to have an action sheet, because they are able to accomplish things on a trial basis that requires a vote. So they come with an action sheet almost every month and ask for a vote on that. And most of those actions are temporary in nature, just like the speed limits. They had that as a temporary measure to test, but that required the approval of the council to do that. And when they finally went to changing the ordinance in terms of speed limits, that also came back to the council to say, okay, this worked. We want to put that in the ordinance. I think that's the only committee, if I'm wrong, maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's the only committee that does do a monthly report back like that.
I think one of the reasons for that function of parking and traffic safety is for that omnibus feature where they talk about the votes they take throughout the year, and then collectively they become memorialized in the August timeframe with a one-time review of all the changes to see if through that year they make sense and should be memorialized.
Bob?
It kind of reminds me that we really don't have a process or a protocol for in dealing with the city council. And, it's been talked about different ways to do that, and we've never really followed through on that.
My understanding may be different from Councilor Lombardi, is that one of the functions of having the council reps on the EDC is to serve as that go-between between council referrals and us and information back.
The liaison kind of
But
thing.
if that's not clear or understood or agreed upon, then I think it would do us well to develop a communication process that we review, get Councilor Lombardi, and Assistant Mayor Kelly's
I
input.
think just, sending this out is great, but it wasn't requested by the council, and they don't really know what's coming, so it's just sort of out of the blue. Whereas if they knew we were working on this, and this, maybe at the beginning of the year, and then, halfway through the year, oh, here's an update on this item, then I think it would make more sense to the council and to the people who are receiving the information. So maybe it's something, beginning of each year, Tom or whoever's the chairman.
I think we're not going to solve the communication process here. If everybody is okay with it, we could have this as a topic at our next meeting and establish a process that we could initiate.
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting we do that now,
Yeah.
but it just did bring up fact that we don't have a
Yep.
process.
I agree.
What we might think about is doing something that's close to what Karen suggested, which was to have a year-end written report that said, this is what we addressed throughout the year.
Right. For this, maybe Vince can just talk to the council about it, or just say, oh, by the way, this is in your packet from the EDC, feel free to reach out with any questions. Just so they don't just get it.
All right, well, so why don't we take Sarah up on her offer? And
Didn't vote on that.
and just develop a conceptual format on
Yes.
how we're going to communicate with the council, when it will be a written report, when it will be an actual presentation, whether the city councilor acts as a liaison, or one of us, or that type of thing. And just for discussion purposes, is the next meeting too soon for that, or?
Nope.
Okay, great. And if you have any thoughts on that, why don't you reach out to Sarah and share them with her on a one-on-one basis?
Just to show some grace, this group started this process in January, came together, right? New approach. The working groups came out, jumped right into the working groups, lots of meetings, lots of information. And so this, to me, it feels like it's a natural
Absolutely.
evolution to, if this is how the EDC wants to operate, that next step of how to communicate and what to communicate. Just so nothing was done wrong, in my opinion. It just everyone jumped in, and
We haven't had a need
and
to
here we are.
establish that.
Right. So, observation.
Yep. Okay. Does anybody have any comments on this initial draft of the inspection memo or letter? Nope? Okay. All right, so as I said, I'll work with Andy on trying to get something that is reformatted to go to the city council. And as Phil suggested, we'll try to add a little of the content from Shanti's presentation into the memo itself. Okay. Any other, anything else from you, Andy? Okay. Any other questions of Andy? Okay, let's hear from Ben.
Good morning, everybody. As was mentioned earlier, last night was our annual celebration of the Business Community Street Life. It was at the Pease Trade Port this year. A little background on that event. That's 12 years in the making of moving that event around the city and hosting it in some of the most awkward and challenging environments possible. And we thought the airport would be simple this year, but there's a lot of rules at airports. And even last night, as we were breaking down, we were breaking federal laws, I think, and we're told about that pretty quickly. But so we learned a lot. It was interesting and but a well-attended event and a very successful event. And we really wanted to bring that event to the trade port to celebrate the economic impact that entity has on our region and on our community. And I think we all know that, having met out there several times and kind of preaching to the choir here. One thing I did want to highlight at that event, and hopefully this group will appreciate, we announced a new partnership with the CTE Center at Portsmouth High School last night. Oftentimes, students that are leaving the high school and going off to industry and maybe a trade school or an apprenticeship program don't get the celebration that the students that are going off to maybe play college athletics or going off to a 4-year degree get. And we're borrowing a model that's been done around the country to host a signing day event for those students. So if they're going off to the shipyard folks will come. They'll give them their tools and their hard hat and sweatshirts and things like that, and celebrate those students entering the workforce. And we are going to host that on May 20th, and I'll have a time soon, and we'll invite the EDC to that event. But I think it's going to be a great celebration of those students and of our workforce. And we announced last night that the inaugural event will be in memory of Dan Plummer, who was instrumental in development of the trade port, and in his memory for that first year. A couple other things going on. It's a busy time of year. Both Sean and I have been working very closely with the retail community, particularly our downtown retail community. There was some concern voiced over the last, say 6 weeks or so, that this year's season downtown hasn't been as strong as others, and there's lots of factors for that, mostly well outside of our control here in Portsmouth, because talking to peers around the region, New Hampshire and beyond, they're all seeing similar things. The Cape is having a little bit of a slower summer. Rhode Island, Maine, Vermont are all having a little bit of a slower summer. So we have taken it upon to work with that group to try to end the year as strong as possible. So we're putting together several shopping locally campaigns, similar to the Art Round Town model. The retailers want to put together a local love night. They're identified the third Thursday of each month where that could happen. We're similar to Art Round Town, where the local community will come out to shop, and the shops will host little functions and events in their stores, stay open maybe perhaps a little bit later, maybe have something to eat or drink in their stores, so that you have that same festive environment that you do for Art Round Town, which is tonight, by the way. So we're hoping to finalize that and launch it in October. So there'll be more to come on that. And that's just one of a handful of initiatives that we have in the works with the retail community. I'll also highlight the Shop and Stroll event that was the same day as the holiday parade for Saturday of December. We're going to be encouraging people, since they're coming downtown anyways, to come early and shop, and the streets are going to stay closed a little bit later after the parade is over to have a shopping kind of night in Portsmouth that night. So a couple efforts going on there. It is fall. It's rapidly fall, and so that means Restaurant Week is around the corner. November 7th to the 16th. We are in the process of signing restaurants up now, and I think we're at 32, which we were at 29 in the spring, so we're seeing a little bit more participation, and we have a few others that are kind of on the fence, including some that are opening their doors soon, like the Howling Wolf that's taking over the Book and Bar space. We've been talking to them about, joining that effort as a way of introducing themselves to the community. So it should be a strong showing, and but the 7th to the 16th of November are those dates if you want to start making reservations now. We also relaunched an old program that is back, our breakfast series. We held that in, what was that? I don't know, early, mid-August, and it was a sort of a deep dive on the Portsmouth school system, and we had our superintendent and high school principal, and Courtney Richings from the CTE Center spoke to share. We called it the Back to School Special, and it was to share about the school system, the challenges that they're facing, the opportunities that exist, and just kind of educate the business community a little bit about how our students are being educated here in Portsmouth. And that was very well received. I think people are genuinely excited about what's going on over the high school and in the school system. There was an article in the paper that stemmed from that, sort of dispelling some of the myths out there that, all this development is going to create challenges for the capacity in the school system. That's just not the case. We're still seeing declining enrollment in the school systems, but there's some redistricting that will come soon. So a lot of good information, hopefully educating the community about that. And then lastly, I'll just mention that one more thing on the breakfast series. That continues in October, where we're going to have a session that focuses on real estate, both residential and commercial, and we're in the process of finalizing that speaking program now. The last thing I want to mention is our podcast is getting ready to unveil its first full season. We did a little practice season. Anne was one of the guests during the practice sessions. Sarah's going to be a guest on this upcoming season, and we're they're short, like 20 to 30 minute conversations, and hopefully you can check that out. It should be released in a couple weeks here. We're just fine tuning that now. So that's the update. Happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Questions, Ben?
Yeah.
This is also anecdotal, but you said you mentioned speaking with your peers and other municipalities. Has anyone brought up kind of the level of global travel and tourism changing this year, and it possibly being part of the result of a lower, a slower summer for other towns in New Hampshire? Like, is New Hampshire maybe not strongly positioned when there's a lot of folks doing a lot more international travel than normal? I don't have any data.
Yeah, I don't have any
that.
data either. Some of the data that does exist does say that election years are generally bad for tourism.
Yep.
People, because there's always a fair amount of uncertainty in the air, and there's a lot of negativity in the media and bad headlines everywhere, and things like that. And that typically election years have a little bit of a down effect on that. One of the things that I will say on a positive side, it seems as though people might have taken their vacation later this year. I know several restaurateurs have said, geez, the last 3 weeks have been, gangbusters, and it's been, really, really strong. So, and my family did that. We vacationed in mid-August this year. Normally that's a July thing. So, maybe that has something to do with it, that we're ending strong. We'll wait and see. But I know we have seen an uptick locally, and particularly Canadian visits. Canadians flock down to Hampton Beach. It's kind of like the closest beach to places in Canada, believe it or not. So a lot of the Quebec and Montreal folks come down here for beach access, and that's been a big boost for us, but I haven't seen that specifically.
Okay.
Ben, do you have an October date for your real estate?
I do. I don't know it, though. But I will be sure that it gets to this group. Sorry.
Can't tell us, is what you're
I don't know it off the top of my head. Sorry.
That's all right. Other questions of Ben? Great, thank you. Good report. Vince, tell us about the city council.
All right. We did a couple of very good things. One that I just have to mention the Cavaretta property. We funded $1 million of that becoming a conserved property, and I think there was incredible support throughout the city. It does not affect the tax rate at all because that money is set aside for this purpose, and so and if anyone has not walked that property, it's just fabulous, and it's probably felt like one of the best things we've done. Frankly.
What property is that, Vincent?
Cavaretta, it's a property that's 100 acres off of Elwyn Road across from the Urban Forestry Center.
Okay.
And it's...
How do you access
There's
it?
an article about it.
well, there's a driveway, and Mr. Cavaretta lives on a portion of that. You go in about a couple hundred yards into the property, and there's a house in the middle of it. But it is it's literally 100 acres with a piece cut out for his living there, and thanks to our deputy city attorney, has created a agreement with the Southeast Land Trust to protect the city's interest in that should anything happen to the land trust or for whatever reason they can no longer maintain that property.
So will it be
I'm not sure.
It will be,
sort of a trail that you can go?
yeah. I mean, ultimately,
Private
it'll be,
property or
right now, it's
farm?
private property. It's very close to Dondero School. So the kids from Dondero use it, whether they're supposed to or not. I mean, it's not not official, but it's great. I was really impressed. I'd never been in there before, and it's just
What's the census schedule on that?
Do you have a sense of
I
schedule?
don't know the schedule, but I think it's a development of or the execution of the agreement between Mr. Cavaretta, the owner, and the Southeast Land Trust. But we have a side agreement with Selt, so.
So do they maintain it, the Southeast Land Trust?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Does they have public access now? Can we go?
Technically, no.
Technically, no, it's still private property, but when that happens, it will be public access. There are no actual trails. There are paths through it, that have been created by,
Then there are children.
well, Dondero children and wild animals, and, there's, so we trudged through it and climbed over logs, and, it's,
Look for messaging from the Southeast Land Trust on that.
yeah.
Okay.
I thought it was brilliant marketing for the land trust to tag it as the 100-acre wood, because it felt like if you voted against it, you were voting against Winnie the Pooh. So that, and I think it's not technically 100 acres. It's
a little
Isn't it like
A little less.
98 or something?
I know,
But still, the fact that they call it the 100-acre wood is
Yeah.
really brilliant.
The rounding error.
They're a great organization.
they are a great organization. I was one of the founding members of their board.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah,
Oh,
way back.
congrats.
Parking garage, we also did a supplemental funding of $1 million to complete the work on the parking garage. This money is coming from the parking trust, so it's not an increase, also not an increase to the tax base. And the proposed now completion is?
Summer of '25.
Summer of '25. We've passed character-based zoning. We also passed the Bassi sculpture for the public garden for the on Pierce Island. What else?
Can I pause on the character-based zoning?
Yeah.
Can you just speak to where that's applicable and what
Sure.
is changing?
Do you want me to jump in?
Yeah.
It's, there was a previously held belief that the zoning put in place for character-based zoning in the downtown, specifically for parcels with more than an acre in size, would require residential if incentives were sought. But it was brought to staff's attention that there was a loophole in that, so what we did essentially was close the loophole. So if you want the incentives for those parcels in the downtown area, you must provide housing. It was sort of there was an or that got changed, that got changed to an and. So loophole closed.
Total ensure, yeah. More residential density instead of other
Correct.
commercial uses.
Correct.
And only in the downtown
Correct.
gateway. Thank you.
So is this for all the existing character 4 and 5 zones, or is this
Just
just
for
the
the
1 acre?
ones that are
Okay.
over an acre in size.
Yeah, okay.
Want to talk about the agreement to stay, the litigation?
I'll let you do that.
The council supported staff's recommendation, which has led to an agreement to stay the litigation in the McIntyre lawsuit, which was a hurdle to overcome. So in that time, we are working to negotiate settlement terms.
Are you going to go forward with the rezoning thing, or will you get the settlement finalized first?
Yes to all of that. How's that?
Okay. They're being done at the same time.
Correct.
Basically, it stops the outward flow of money
Correct. Litigation is
on
stayed.
both sides. So,
That would be nice to resolve.
yeah. We also passed the hazardous mitigation plan. It's a plan that is directed toward disaster, I believe, more than, it doesn't include things like the propane being on the rail tracks, for example. And that's a question I know I had, and it's just not part of that. So I'd have to look at it again to detail
Well,
what it does.
we all got a copy of it.
Okay.
Sean distributed it, so.
Yeah,
The gist is, if you have an updated hazard mitigation plan in place, you're eligible for grants. It's obviously a good document to have should something occur. It's something staff refer to regularly.
Yep.
we also voted on the climate action plan for the city. This has been in the works for a long time. It's included a lot of input from a lot of people, including students who were pretty involved in the whole thing. And we also passed an update to the elderly and disabled exemptions, tax exemptions, raising those values once again. And we probably did other things too, but that's what
It was a busy month.
it was a busy month.
Any questions of Vince?
I would also say, and I would highly recommend, if you've never taken a tour of the Navy Yard, you should do it. I went on a tour with the Athenaeum, and it was probably set to, because it's so close to the time of the
Peace treaty.
Russo-Japanese meetings, but it was very informative. The historian there is incredibly knowledgeable, so I would recommend it.
Yeah, that is great. Anything you want to add, Karen?
No, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, so that, we don't have anybody from the public here to offer comments, but I would open it up to any new business before we adjourn. Well, one final thing. So you'll notice on the agenda, the next meeting, we've scheduled the next meeting for October 4th, early in the year, but our fearless leader here is going on vacation that week. And I said I would put on the agenda here whether we should move the meeting to the 11th. Sean has said, don't do it on my account, but I'm willing to accommodate his schedule depending on what everybody's schedule. Is it easier to leave it on the 4th? And
Seems like
Yeah,
there's something
I
on
think
the
so.
okay.
Great.
All right, now I would entertain any new business. Or,
It's my anniversary.
all right, hearing none?
Tom, sorry. The community picnic is Sunday,
Thank you.
11 to 2.
Oh, is that at Leary Field again?
It's not at
It's
Leary Field.
not at Leary Field.
I'm really
Prescott
glad you
Park?
brought that up. Prescott Park Arts Festival is partnering with the city. We're taking advantage of the props still being open and the fact that they're willing to support our help with bands on the stage and having some shade, really. I think part of this was, last year was nice and really hot. So, and we also knew that we couldn't copy or duplicate the efforts made during the 400th, which included a lot of donations, a lot of effort from the 400th committee that no longer exists. So we're trying to pivot and create a lasting Residence Day community picnic. And given that the Arts Festival folks are supportive and given that there's food already there for purchase and they're offering some deals, and if you buy a reduced price meal, you get free ice cream, and we'll have some bands. So 11 to 2, Sunday, rain or shine. And well,
This Sunday?
This Sunday. I think we're going to always have it the Sunday after Labor Day to try and memorialize it for people.
And that's just 11 to 2, is that?
Correct. And we
11 to 2.
also, I know that you've talked to Ben about trying to promote.
Yeah, so we...
Stick around and shop.
We talked with the retailers and give them the opportunity to promote. If you're down at the picnic, the residents come on down for some retail, local love, and discounts and things of that nature. So anything we're doing, the retailers are really focused on re-engaging with the locals, if you will, and reintroducing themselves. So that's a build
Right.
to the chamber. And I have one other issue. And I'll just tease this. It reminded me because I saw the folks from Great Bay Community College last night. They're starting a culinary program. They've been working with Evan Mallett and David Vargas and Jay McSherry for years, I think, since I left there. And it's coming together where it's just going to start a pipeline of moving students, people into the culinary arts. It's not going to be a full-blown program, but it's an on-ramp, and then eventually it'll evolve into more. But that's been a big effort, and it reminded me because I saw them all last night.
Is there a connection with the CTE program in Portsmouth and the Great Bay program?
Yeah, CTE's been part of those conversations, and really, it's all about curriculum alignment, so that if students graduated, say, from Portsmouth High or Dover High's culinary programs or any of the culinary programs, that, they'll be able to check some boxes already at the Great Bay program, and they won't have to take, like, the Serve Safe and, some of those other things that are elements of the program. But thanks for mentioning that. It's a 3-year, I think, conversation that's finally received some federal dollars, federal funding, workforce dollars, and it's going to be a game changer for our local restaurant community.
And I just love it because it's a great example of when businesses step up to the plate and engage, they can make things happen, even if it takes 3 years.
Yeah.
That's great. Since we've got a little time, let me ask our council representative, city manager. So I've seen the notices on asking people to comment on the South Mill Playground. Is there a plan to redo that in some capacity, and how large will that be? Or what's the concept that's...
Well, I'm not familiar with the concept, but that's in the CIP, so.
It's something that Public Works has looked to get on the CIP to update primarily from an accessibility standpoint. It's sort of the central point. It's the most public of our playgrounds, and the idea is to make improvements there that would make it a universal design playground. I'm looking at my accessibility expert. In addition, Rotary has helped jumpstart this or move this along because they gave a grant toward the effort as part of the 400th celebration, and we're using that money now for design of the elements. So the design is looking to be informed by the survey, which is out now, and for which we have almost 300 responses, which is great.
Right.
What do you want to see there? What would make sense there?
It's also, I have to say, gratifying when Peter Rice reaches out to me wearing the Access Navigators hat and asks for help on these things, which was a couple of years ago. But it's kind of cool that they reach out to people with, opinions on this.
It's also
so
good-
we helped get it on the CIP.
And the point of that, it takes some time. Sean said 3 years for the culinary program. That's pretty good. This playground you may not see real tangible results till the 2026 construction season, but it's a matter of planning and then putting the resources together financially.
Well, compared to the public library, it's all short term. All right. So any other questions or any other?
I feel like I want to mention, there are two women who have had incredible influence in Portsmouth who died fairly recently, Ruth Griffin and Sue Thorson, and they are having, today actually is a celebration of Ruth Griffin's life at Jimmy's. And
It's October 4th.
I'm in October.
You are.
Oh, I am.
That's okay.
All right, never mind.
Emily Latella.
My calendar went to October because we were talking about October dates. Sorry.
Smart calendar. It's a smart computer.
It heard you say that, and then it
Right.
switched. All right, well,
Sorry.
since we won't get together until the morning of the Ruth Griffin one,
Yeah.
on October 4th is her,
Noted.
Yeah.
all right. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? Somebody, okay, all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much.